All right, everyone. Welcome to today's LinkedIn for Thought Leader show. I just realized when I was having the countdown that I need to change my countdown from the Step Up and Stand Out show to the LinkedIn for Thought Leader show. Very excited to have Hope Timberlake and Dr. Monisha Bhanote on the show with me. They're both members of Her Success Society, which is my membership for professional women who are looking to get known, get seen, and get the opportunities they want. Hope and Monisha are already, in my opinion, thought leaders and are doing an amazing job with showcasing their expertise. Now, this event is being streamed on LinkedIn as a LinkedIn live, and also on my YouTube channel, LinkedIn for Thought Leaders, and inside the Women LinkedIn Thought Leaders Facebook network group. So, hopefully wherever you're watching or streaming or what tuning in from, let us know in the comments where you're calling in from. It's always helpful to know, so we know we're not just talking to an empty room. And without further ado, I'd like to have Hope and then Monisha introduce yourself, what you do, and then we can go into our discussion, which I'm really looking forward to.
Great. Thank you, Nyna. It's so great being here. Speaking of thought leaders, we are with the best. Nyna is the best. I am a speaker, trainer, and author of the book Speak Up, Damn It, How to Quiet Your Fears, Polish Your Presence, and Share Your Voice. And I am passionate about working with women and those not represented in leadership to cultivate, learn the skills to amplify their voices at work.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Hope and Nyna. I'm looking forward to our conversation today. My name is Dr. Monisha Bhanote. As you can see, I am a medical doctor. I am a quintuple board certified physician with expertise in integrative lifestyle, functional culinary medicine, and nutrigenomics biohacking. I recently have the best-selling book called The Anatomy of Well-Being, and I work with both patients via telehealth. And I also work with individuals at my retreats, which I do in person, as well as working with wellness business owners to create their unique method for their business. So very diverse background that I'm coming to you from. So thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you both for that the introduction. And yes, you both have diverse backgrounds and have achieved a lot. And again, I know you have busy lives and schedules, so I'm really happy to have you on. Simone just says, bonsoir. I'm looking forward to this. I'm imagining Simone may be in France. But thank you for joining us. And anyone else who's joining us, let us know. And Angelique is here and she says, love your book, Dr. Bhanote. That's awesome. And my name is Nyna Caputi. I'm the founder of Her Success Society, which is a membership, as I said before, for women thought leaders and aspiring thought leaders. Also the founder of the Expat Women, which is a group for professional women from across the globe who are looking to navigate their lives abroad. And in the last 2 years, I've also moved into, or I would say pivoted into being a LinkedIn thought leader, coach, consultant, and trainer. And when we talk about finding our zone of genius, finding work that lights us up, that is something that really happened to me during the pandemic. I'll go more into it in a bit, but I'd like to hear Hope and Monisha talk about how did you discover your zone of genius, work that lights you up? Because none of us are born with it, right? It happens. I mean, you get that aha moment, or sometimes you work towards it. So was it something that you knew you always wanted to do during your childhood or teen years, or did it happen later in life and you were doing a career that was not related to what you were doing? Because one of the questions I get often, or one of the, when I'm working with women one-on-one or inside Her Success Society, or when I'm doing workshops, is we haven't yet found our zone of genius. We haven't yet found what work we really love, and how can we find that, and do we know that, so I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you found it, so you might inspire those listening in.
I'm happy to go. I think that's a very important question. I do feel that people earlier in their career, or even maybe they were family caregivers and then are re-entering the workplace, feel this pressure of, I don't know exactly what I am good at or should do, or the zone of genius as you refer to it, Nyna. And mine was a very circuitous route. if you look at the Venn diagram, the thing that overlap was really my desire to work for the betterment of women. But it took a lot of different forms. I was a political science major and thought I wanted to be a lawyer defending women's rights, especially in the healthcare sector. And after college, I spent a little time in Washington, D.C., realized that was not what I wanted to do. And then I spent time in the healthcare sector in California, University of California, San Francisco Hospital, got a master's in public health, doing research studies for women in breast cancer for more than 7 years. And then pivoted to working with not just women, but people to become better communicators. It was a job that worked better with my family life and with what was happening with me at that time in my early 30s. And it was only from there that I realized most of my work was with men. And I joke in my book that are pale, male, and stale, which isn't totally true. Many of them were not stale. Many of them had really interesting ideas, and some of them were not pale, but majority of my clients were male. And it was around things happening in the world with Me Too and Donald Trump. And I thought, what am I doing? Why am I perpetuating this idea, or not perpetuating an idea, but why am I working with men with big budgets on coaching when where I'm really passionate is changing the dynamic and the look and feel of leadership and finding a way to do what I do at the top, but for more people who are mid-career or even entry-level career. And I'm a little bummed that it took me as long as it did to get there, but I've been in this space now for, 6 years or so, like pretty exclusively focusing on women. Not exclusively, but that's where my passion is, and it's cultivated. It's created a healthy business, and so happy. It's just amazing, and it's okay to try these little things and make paths and see what works. And I feel like I brought a lot of it together. It all came together finally at this stage of my life.
Yeah, that's interesting that, because it took you longer to find this, and sometimes it's the careers you do before that finally leads you to your right career, because then this didn't work for me, or this didn't light me up working with men, when all along it was women and empowering women to speak up, which is what you do, right? But so I always, because I my background's in biotechnology, I did my master's in biotech, I worked in a lab, I hated it, and and then it took me so many years to finally discover what I did. But I think all that made me who I am today, and it makes me more empathetic to people who haven't found their zone of genius yet, because I know how unhappy I was. I had a job that gave me every perk possible, but I used to look at my watch to see when it was 5 o'clock so I could go home. So I totally get what you say, Hope, and I know you're doing amazing, and I've read your book, and definitely we'll have you share the link in the comments so people can get your book. Same with Monisha. So go ahead, Monisha, and share your how you discovered your zone of genius.
So I'm going to take it from a little bit of a different perspective for discovering my zone of genius, because for me, I think it comes from experiences, and really going through different experiences and seeing what emotion that experience creates. So if I have an experience where that emotion is creating, trust and joy, I'm like, okay, I need to learn more about that. What's happening here? Not that experiences of fear and sadness are bad. It's really important to have all your emotions. However, for me, I think I inch closer and closer every time I have a new experience. And that's always what I guide my patients to do as well, is if you are in a situation where you're just not happy, and it doesn't mean that you need to have a physical experience. You can have a virtual imaginary experience and start creating those new emotions in you, because at the end of the day, emotions are that fundamental part of that human consciousness. So I think where I've come into my space of thought leadership is that each and every one of my experiences has brought me closer and closer to my values and what I believe is true and important and worthwhile. And every day I'm going closer and closer to that. It's not going to be done as long as I'm alive. It's going to continue evolving. But I think being able to share that message of how what I learned 20 years ago as a doctor does not stand true for me today. And if what I learned today was available 20 years ago, that would have been great. But just like we evolve in science and technology, we as individuals need to evolve our learning with and keeping up. So that's kind of where my how did I come to came from. It came from everyday experiences. And
Love it.
curiosity.
And I love what you're
Never
doing
lose
too.
your curiosity.
Yeah.
Right. And I love what you're doing with the healthcare, with healthcare and, really looking at it holistically, because I think we need more healthcare, medical doctors, doing what you are doing. And Simone had a question for you. She said, is your work also related and perhaps evolves in the same arena of Dr. Carolyn Miss? I loved her book on anatomy of the spirit, as old as you.
Simone, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with Dr. Carolyn Miss. I will definitely look up the anatomy of spirit to see if it is related. My work is from combining a perspective of how the human body works on a cellular level, because at the end of the day, our cells make up our tissues, make up our organs, make up our being, but then we also have this other dimension that we can't see, which is our spiritual self, which is that invisible part, right? So how do we connect all this into the human beings that we are? So there may be some overlap, but I can't say for sure.
Thank you. And again, Simone, you can connect with Dr. Monisha, and y'all can continue the conversation. Arjuman Shafi Arya said, "Amazing job, Hope." Ashera Eden says, "Hello from Hawaii." And Angelique says, "All your stories are inspiring on different levels." So, if you found your zone of genius, for those watching in the audience or who watch the recordings later, let us know if you found your zone of genius in the comments and what it is. And if you haven't, there are several tips. You can usually, when there's something that you really love and it's different from your hobbies and your passions, it's really work that lights you up, where you can spend hours. Like, I just love LinkedIn. My kids and my husband are like so tired of me talking about LinkedIn, and of course also empowering women from a very young age. My mom told me I should be a psychologist, a psychiatrist, because I was always listening to my friends, tales of woe and giving them advice. I didn't follow my mom's, not tips, but her advice. But eventually I did kind of realize that everything I did was around empowering women. I made a documentary around gender violence in India and the Indian diaspora in North America. I did, the Walk for India's Missing Girls, which was a global walk. And then I started the Expat Woman. Then I started Her Success Society. I did over 400 events, always focused on, having women panelists or women speakers, shine the spotlight on them and get them known. So, sometimes it's what you do and what you gravitate towards that makes you realize this is your zone of genius. So you could ask maybe your friends, your partner, your kids, what do I seem to talk about a lot? What are podcasts you listen to? What are books you like to read? And that might tell you this is the area or the zone of genius or your area of expertise that you can really hone. And I like what you said, Monisha, about it's evolving. You think it's this today, and then maybe down the line or down the road you realize it was actually this. It pivots. So it is a journey. It doesn't just happen overnight. And I'm sure, and I see Hope agreeing as well. So my next question to Hope and Monisha is, so you found your zone of genius, you found your area of expertise, and you both are thought leaders because you're known for teaching women to speak up at meetings, conferences. Monisha is all about the cellular health. So you're already known for something, which is amazing, because that's what you want people to, when they think of Hope, you want them to think about speaking up, and Monisha about cellular health. So how did you get known? What were the strategies you did so people could find you and also offer you the opportunities that you want? Because the other thing with zone of genius is you want to get paid for what you do. You want to get hired, right? It's not just, we all need to live and live the lifestyle we want. So go ahead. Maybe Monisha, you want to start this time, and then we'll have Hope.
Sure. So, well, when you think of what makes a thought leader, right? That's where you can kind of hone in on what are some of the skills that you might have as a thought leader, and what would make you a thought leader? So one of the things that I consider is having a deep expertise. My background in what I do and the diversity of what I'm doing and how deep it goes to that cellular level. And most doctors do not have that. They haven't been looking through the microscope literally at single cells going, all right, this is right, this is wrong, this is becoming this. So having that, and then also being able to, I would say secondly, is bringing a unique perspective. So not only do I have that background in cellular health as my background in anatomic, clinical, and cytopathology, but I've now combined that as a unique perspective from an integrative lifestyle physician point of view. So the end result is developing a disease, right? But I've already seen a lot of that. Like, I know what's going to happen if you do not follow the path of taking care of your cells, right? So now I've taken something that is most doctors don't get to see and gone, all right, these are the different things that will impact that. And from a very holistic point of view, right? So we're looking at nutrition, we're looking at sleep, we're looking at emotional well-being, physical well-being, pretty much everything around well-being. We're looking at all those aspects to see how does this person, this individual function, and how can we optimize that based off of what their goals and desires for their life is. Because at the end of the day, we have a very short life and we want to make the best of it. We don't want to be on this planet being sad and miserable. We want to be happy, right? I think we could all agree we want to be happy. And how do we do that? So I think definitely having that deep expertise, having that unique perspective of how it comes about, then also being a strong communicator in the way you are presenting this information, because it's one thing to be book smart and know it, but how can you practically apply it? And how can you apply it to many individuals that everyone, even with their unique background, unique makeup, can benefit from this? And ultimately, one of the things I think that helps thought leaders stand out is not shying away from difficult times. I mean, these last 2 years have been extremely difficult for many, many people, right? So some people did really well and came out of it on top. Some people are really struggling, right? So realizing that there is going to be an ebb and flow in existence, and how do we manage that is very important. So those are just my top 4 at the top of my head.
Yeah, I love those, and some of them I agree with I agree with all of them, but some of them have not been my experience. For example, the first, talking about this deep expertise. I mean, Monisha is a doctor, and she has all kinds of credentials and credibility as such, and she's worked for it. This is not something that she woke up on on Tuesday and said, "Great," and you slap on doctor behind my name, MD. But so for those of us who are not in that situation, I think that there is some fear, there are some worries around. I've spoken to a lot of people, both who are new graduates, but also those who are re-entering the workplace after some kind of shift in life. And I would say, yes, having that expertise is a huge bonus that you have earned. On top of that, or if you don't, for whatever reason, have that or can get that right away, I don't recommend people who are, let's say, re-entering the workplace at a certain point, spending too much time thinking I have to get master's degrees, I have to get PhDs, I have to do this, because there's that fallacy of, or there's that tendency for us to think that until I can't share my ideas until I have some kind of credibility or some kind of expertise, when in fact your life expertise can be creating that unique perspective that Monisha was talking about, that can be as important in many realms. That has come up a lot for me. In fact, the question that came from the viewer about, does Monisha know this book? I get that all the time. There's so many things that are overlapping, and it sounds like for Monisha, it's very clear around the cellular and the spiritual. For me, there can be very clear things too. Like, I want people to speak up at work. I want them to change the dynamic and be heard, be part of decisions. That's different than I'm training them to speak on a stage. That can be part of it, but that's not the main part of it. And so, yes, I have a specific area of expertise, but so do other people. And so there can be that. When I was writing my book, there was a lot of that inner critic of, why should they hear from me? These ideas have already been heard and told. And I had to do a lot of introspective work and recognize the readers have not heard all my stories. They don't know all my clients. They don't know how this impacts specifically women in tech, which is most of the people with whom I work. They also may not have been ready the first couple of times they read something similar. It might be my version because it's the fourth version, or because it's that wherever they are in their life that it resonates. So I did and do recommend that. Yes, you want your unique perspective. Absolutely hone it. Don't say you're a communications coach and you can fix all ailments, but get really specific about what it is that you do and you're uniquely qualified to do. But be okay that there may be other people who have written articles or who have written books, and your take is going to be different because it's your stories, it's your perspective, and don't shy away from that piece of it.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that, because I think we are our biggest critics, and we're so prone to self-sabotage.
Yeah.
I think just like you said, and I'm sure Monisha faced the same thing when you're writing your book. You wonder, like, who am I to write the book? Or then maybe there's so many other books like this. Who's going to read it? First of all, so my favorite quote, and you might have heard it before, is, "I never lose. I either win or I learn." It's by Dr. Nelson Mandela, and I think that's really powerful, because that's the first step. You just put yourself out there, and by putting yourself out there and sharing your expertise to your target audience is that first step, right? Once you do that, even if no one shows up, like sometimes I do LinkedIn posts and I have almost 9,000 followers on LinkedIn, and sometimes I don't get any likes or any engagement, and I've put so much work into it, but I know that only 3% of people are active on LinkedIn. So there are a lot of lurkers watching it, not watching it, but reading it, or watching it if it's a video. And at some point, most of my clients are not the people who engage on my LinkedIn posts or who come to my events. They've just see my stuff, and then they reach out to me, and I'm like, really? I didn't, I've never seen you or heard from you before. So you just have to keep that in mind, that it's not about the vanity metrics, whatever it is, whether it's a book or, it's speaking at an event or hosting a LinkedIn live like this. People will hear about you if you put yourself out there. And I think also imposter syndrome is, it plays such a big role in our lives, and every time we step out of our comfort zone and want to do something new, imposter syndrome rears its ugly head. So for me, every time I feel like I'm an imposter and that I feel like I shouldn't be doing it, then I know it's actually good, because that means I am doing something different. I am reaching for something new. And so hearing that little voice saying, who are you to do it? You're going to make a fool of yourself, you're going to fail, is actually a good thing. So before I go on to the next question, some ways that I showcase my expertise is, one thing I realize is I'm not going to wait for people to invite me to their tables or to have a seat at their table. I'm going to build my own table and invite people to have a seat at my table. Being an expat woman coming to this country, now it's 20 years since I came here, I had no professional network. I couldn't get a job. I barely knew anyone, and it's been a struggle. But I realized if I didn't put myself out there, no one would know about my existence. And yes, my career has taken so many different pivots. I mean, I made a documentary film that won many awards, and I got people to work on it. And I realized the power of social media. Even though I'm a very private person, I put myself out there. I got interviewed on news channels, and one thing led to another, to another. And the main thing is, I was passionate about that topic. And the same thing with, empowering women, hosting my events. I started hosting events initially for immigrant women, because I realized that, as you said earlier about the pale, stale, I forgot the third, right? I realized that most panels and speakers, didn't look like a lot of the women that I was representing. And so I wanted to change that. And so I started giving women that opportunity. But I never spoke at my events. In fact, when people, I've hosted over 400 in-person events in San Francisco, Canada, New York, Hong Kong, India. But I just felt, who am I to speak at these events? I don't have any expertise. I would tell them, don't shoot the video, don't take photographs till I'm done, because I don't want to be seen or heard. Start the video after that. I mean, that was that bad that I thought I had to be behind the scenes. And it's only when the pandemic hit and my events, in-person events came to a standstill that I realized the power of putting myself out there, because now everyone was doing stuff virtual. And once I started speaking on camera, doing videos, doing lives, it got easier for me. And I realized it doesn't matter. Yes, I'm never going to be perfect. Even in my lives, I stumble. My mind suddenly goes, blank. And Hope, I'm sure I know you're a speaker, but this is who I am. I'm putting myself out there authentically, vulnerably, and yeah, and whoever can empathize with me, can what I say resonates with them, they're going to want to be either a part of my network, or want to hire me as a coach, or want to listen to what I have to say. So that's what I want to tell people. You've got to start somewhere, and you have to figure out who your target audience is. Who do you want to reach? It shouldn't be like throwing spaghetti at the wall hoping something will stick. You have to know, what do I want to be known for as a thought leader? What is the area of expertise? And as Heather Hope said, what is your niche? And then who do you want to know about your expertise? You have to know. You can't serve everyone. You have to know who these people are. What is this category, right? So with that being said, Hope and Monisha, you both have, one of the things you've done, which I haven't done as yet, is published a book, right? And I think that's huge, because I have some ideas, but it just seems like such a huge process. And I think a book is a fabulous way to showcase your thought leadership. It's a lot of work, and I'm sure there are people in the audience who would want to know about, how do you go about showcasing your thought leadership in the book? If you have like 3 steps, and what made you decide to do the book, and what are some tips people can implement even if they want to do a book down the road? Any takeaways, pros, cons? I'd love for you both to share.
Who wants to go first?
I'll go real quick. So for the individuals who are thinking about writing a book, I would say just start writing every day. The practice of just sitting down and actually putting pen to paper, which many people don't do anymore, but just to get all those ideas out of your head and can help formulate what that concept of that book is going to be. Because if you sit down and go, oh, I want to write a book and I want to write it on my expertise, but you have so much knowledge that it's like, how do you condense it into something that is readable? And then the other challenge is also, especially when it comes to health and wellness, is how to translate it so somebody else who's not in that field can use the words that are in that book. Because at the end of the day, my goal is really to inspire change, and inspire change so you can live your best self, but live your best life, right? So how can you translate that? And sometimes for some individuals, if you're like, I cannot sit still to write down a few words, start recording yourself. Have a conversation with your girlfriend where it doesn't even need to be anybody in the room. Just start recording yourself and be like, this is what I want to talk about today. One of the silly things that I used to do, and I still kind of do, is I get a lot of ideas when I'm in my shower. So I have a whiteboard, like a waterproof whiteboard. I don't know if it's just like the water running, I'm a water baby, or that relaxation, but my ideas keep flowing there. And I'm like, I won't remember them once I leave the shower. So I just have a whole like list going there. So look at what works for you and how you can capture your ideas. And then after you take those ideas, just start compiling them into like thoughts, right? Because that's the biggest challenge. And I see there, Simone says it's a daunting task, right? To sit down and write a book. Well, my book, from what I've been told, is technically 3 books, because my book is almost 500 pages. Mm-hmm. So I was told to stick to a certain number of words, and I said, no, I cannot do that, because the message is like the whole body. So how am I going to chop the body up and not give you the full answer, right? So so technically I probably could have had volume 1, 2, and 3. But so think about what it is that you want to get done there, and see how it's going to make an impact. So that's what I say if you were thinking about writing a book. And also the other thing is schedule it into your day. So every Friday was my book writing day, my book editing day for 2 years, nonstop. Every Friday. I mean, I went into weekends and stuff like that, but that was a day that was blocked out for no other meetings, nothing else. That was all I was doing, because it takes time for your mind to get into that zone of genius and that flow. So hopefully that's some ideas to help you get started.
Yeah, I love that. From a big picture perspective, I would say I've had a lot of people ask about it, and I don't think anyone. I think you should go into writing a book if your goal is to enjoy it. You're curious. You want to crystallize your ideas, your thought leadership. I wouldn't go into it expecting to change your life or change your business. Now, it has done both of those things, but it is such an intensive and amazing process. But as Monisha was saying, 2 years. I mean, there's a lot of blood, sweat, tears, euphoria that goes into it. So it's not something that I definitely don't think it's a quick fix to thought leadership. I think there are other ways that people can be known. Some of the things that Nyna has been doing. I mean, Nyna has, I don't know, 10 to 20 times as many followers as I have. So if that's what you're looking for, there are other ways to do it. But if you're really interested, you're curious, I've always been somewhat of a writer. I've always had some version of a side of me that enjoys that process. So if you're curious about it and you are going to enjoy the process, then I would consider doing it. And once you're there, some of Monisha's tips, I think, are exactly right. Had never heard of, and probably many of you do, and probably some of you don't. I'd never heard of the Artist's Way. So it's not something I really followed to the letter at all. There's some spiritual pieces of it that didn't resonate as much with me, but there were some really interesting things in there. And the main thing that many writers do is morning pages, where it is longhand writing for a certain amount of time when you wake up. And just like Monisha said, when I was doing morning pages, or when I was in a shower, or when I was driving, sometimes these amazing ideas came that would not necessarily emerge when I was sitting at my desk writing. So I did, for at least 6 months, do morning pages. And the other thing I did is I had an accountability partner where we met every day for 30 minutes. For us, it was lunchtime. So from 12 to 12:30, every single day for 30 minutes. There were a couple of days that we missed, but pretty much it was 7 days. And no matter what, I had to sit there and write. And that was very helpful. And then the third thing is, I knew I was going to publish a book. So I'm working with a developmental editor who really helped to take a lot of these ideas and format them in a way that made sense, because we all have our curse of knowledge. We know this. Monisha knows the body and cellular, how cells work. And I know how people communicate. And it's hard for us to see, what does someone brand new to this want and need, and in what order should they get it? So we have our ideas, but it's really helpful to work with a professional developmental editor to help you format and structure how you're going to put your book together. Well, the final thing I would say is don't buy into all the hype too. There's so much hype. I mean, that you could spend all your money on webinars and programs and book coaches, and tens of thousands of dollars, if not more, on finding experts to help. Really tap into, why are you doing this and what do you really need to get out of it? Because I hate it when I watch people and they're like, well, I have to now sell X number, hundreds of thousands of books to pay for what I've invested. That's probably the worst way to go into writing a book, is thinking that you're going to make money off of that process, because it is an expensive process and it has paid off for me, but over time and in different ways, not from book sales alone, but from the other work that has come from the book sales or from the book marketing.
Those are such amazing tips from both of you, Monisha and Hope. Some of the takeaways I would say, because I'm looking to write a book down the line, but one is I loved about the shower, having, because you're right. I get my inspiration when I'm walking and I'm listening to podcasts, and then I have my notes on my phone and I write stuff down. But I know for some people it comes in the shower. Some people get it even at night. I think they wake up in the middle of the night and they have a notebook and they write down. I love how you spoke about, keeping one day aside to write, and no other disturbances in the morning pages, and also about not spending money on on workshops, trainings. I get in-mails on LinkedIn all the time saying, and they've not even read my profile, but they'll just, try and sell you something. Do you want to write a book? There's so many ghostwriters out there. And then I think also keeping in mind who you're writing this for and what is your goal, because I know book sales cannot result unless it's some huge bestseller or you're someone really famous. It's not monetarily, as you said, it won't happen just through the book sale. It might, it might land in you getting more speaking gigs, or being invited to be a keynote, whatever. So I loved all the, that. And you have to be practical, and you've got to be passionate about the topic. I so agree. If you're not excited about the topic and you're forcing yourself to write a book because everyone's writing a book, right? Today it looks like everyone's writing a book, so you feel, oh, I have to do this too. You really, and I think always keeping the audience in mind and what value you have to add to them, and how, even if one paragraph in your book can impact them in some way, right? You've done the job. So I really love this. So let's also, and Simone has a lot of comments here. So maybe Hope and Monisha, you can, respond to her in the comments later. But the other thing, before we close, is, I was talking about speaking gigs as well, because I think book is a great way. And then of course, I use LinkedIn as well, which I've been able to reach many people and also get clients. But I think the other way is through speaking. And so I wanted to, and I know both of you have been speaking at events, at conferences, maybe been on podcasts. I know, Hope, you also do workshops for companies, which I think targeting companies and having them, hire you to speak, or organizations that can afford you, is great, because you want to get paid for, speaking as well. Again, some people, I get a lot of women in my network write to me and say, I want to become a paid speaker, and they've never spoken before. And I just feel it doesn't happen that way. You have to keep speaking, and then someone hears you speak, and then they hire you. So even after you become a paid speaker, you have to keep speaking for free, because you're being put in front of new audiences. Because when someone invites me to speak at an event, for me it's an honor, because they've recognized my skills. I don't care whether they pay me or not, unless of course it's a big corporation and I know they can afford me. But a lot of women's organizations and stuff, so long as I know that they're genuine. There's some that I just feel like, it's not really my audience. But I think it's putting me in front of a whole new audience, which otherwise I'd be spending so many advertising dollars or marketing dollars on. So, would you both be open to sharing how you get your speaking gigs? And are they paid, are they free? Then any tips that people who are listening to can implement, so if they want to be speakers for both free and paid gigs?
I can go. So I'm in a new office. I have a funny light shadow on me, so I apologize. I'm trying to
that is the StreamYard. StreamYard has horrible, like, compared to Zoom. I just see StreamYard that makes people. Monisha's lighting seems to be good, but mine and yours seems to be off. And I've seen you on Zoom. It looks so different.
Yeah, well, I just moved into this new office a couple of days ago, so I got to figure that out. So I apologize. I'll try to.
Look at me. Mine, the light is. I don't have this problem with Zoom. I hope StreamYard's listening and fixes it.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. Okay, so for speaking, I have a lot to say, but I'll try to consolidate into a couple coherent ideas. One is the analogy I'll use is to dating. If you made your New Year's resolution that you're going to find a partner this year, and you sat out and you were focused solely on finding that partner, you may succeed, but it might not be the best match. It might not be the best or long-term person or situation for you. And I think speaking is, in a lot of our goals are like that, in that it's a slow burn. It has to be relationship building. It has to be that you've built up your thought leadership, that you have made yourself known in different arenas. You've done the free speaking that, Nyna, you're talking about. I have gotten to a place, I've been speaking, definitely not consistently, but for 10 years. And some years it might be 3 gigs. Some years it was 0. And I think truly the very first time that I got asked to speak and was paid a 4-digit figure, mid-4. I mean, it was a mid 4-digit figure for a virtual event, so it was good. It was a good price by somebody I didn't know. They found me on LinkedIn. So that after 10 years of doing different things, That happened just this past fall. And everything else has been, I've done something, maybe it's free, that then has turned into something else. That's another free thing that's turned into something else. That's a paid thing. Or I've done free, nothing. So, or it may be that some of those free things I've done will turn into something down the road where someone will bring me in as a trainer. So it's similar to the book. I don't think you should pursue speaking or book writing if your goal is to get to retire off of either of those. I think that if it's you enjoy the process and it can be part of the suite of things that you enjoy doing and that you offer to the world, when you look at it from my perspective, when you look at it as like, here are these opportunities or gifts that I can bring to others, or this, I feel honored that I can speak to your event. That to me is the best mindset of going into speaking versus thinking that I need to get this number of engagements. I need to get that boyfriend this year. I need to get paid this much, because it's not a simple, there's not a simple path. And I think a book has helped, but to be honest, the book has helped get me a lot of low to no paying gigs where they'll say, well, we'll buy your book. And that's awesome. And some people paid for 100 books, which is again great. But it's still, if I look at some of my other corporate work, the amount of money that I make up of 100 books for customizing a talk is less than if I were doing some of my other corporate work. So just being really clear on what it is that you're doing and why you're doing it.
Yeah, thank you, Hope, for sharing. Great ideas there. And so for me, my speaking career is definitely a lot earlier than my doctor career, which has been ongoing for 3 decades. So my speaking career is in the past few years, and I have a balance of a lot of free speaking events that I do and paid. So I have a combination of both. And it really depends on, if I'm doing it for a community event and I'm trying to share a message out in the community, which at the end of the day, I know is going to make more impactful change, because if people are healthier, they are happier. If they are happier, they are more productive human beings, not causing trouble. So I have a bigger picture in mind here. But then I do have paid speaking gigs. So, I always recommend for you to look at, where is your community? Where are you aligned? Where would you enjoy speaking? I'm speaking at the Sedona Yoga Festival coming up in April. And you might be like, well, that's a yoga festival. Does that have to do with being a doctor? Well, yoga festivals is one of the first places that I started opening up to this path of healing outside of conventional medicine. So it holds like a space like in my heart. So I'm speaking for them, and I know that that's going to, the talk I've created specifically for their Evolution of Conscious conference is going to impact so many people who are there to hear that message. So I'm really looking forward to it, right? So definitely both these writing books and speaking aren't necessarily careers that are going to make you big bucks right out of the batch. They may in the long run. So you definitely have to love them and put some of the legwork into them. And the other thing comes from, like you mentioned, Nyna, if somebody asked you like that they want to be a speaker, but they're not doing any speaking gigs, right? So think about where you can start talking. You know where you can start talking? When you have Zoom meetings. Pretend you are a person on a stage and you are having this conversation. You can practice your speaking skills, because that is not something we are born with. We have to practice that every single day. How do we communicate our message, right? So you can we're all on Zoom, right? Practice that in your everyday meetings. You can practice that with your friends when you're out and about, you're having dinner. Just, we don't think about our body posture. We don't think about our eye movement and whether we're rolling our eyes or how we're communicating, how our body posture is. That's all part of speaking. So think about that and see, what am I already doing that I can maybe do it as a speaker, or practice. Use that practice. And unfortunately, for some reason, we can't write in the comments. So I did want to answer Simone's question, because I don't know if it's a setting on StreamYard. But one of the things that she said is that when she does block out, so she has time that she blocks out that she doesn't feel creative enough to write. So creativity comes from, once again, being in this space where your mind is flowing, right? So see what are other things aside from writing that can help your mind flow. Obviously, for me, showers is one, but another one, like Nyna mentioned, is taking walks, listening to podcasts. Guess what? I wear my little fanny pack and I have a little tiny notebook this big that I stop on my walks and write notes if I'm like inspired by listening to somebody else's story. So think about, Simone, where are other places that you might feel inspired? Is it going for a walk in a park? Is it going and having coffee and just watching, other people going about? So think about that you don't have to restrict yourself to, okay, you might not feel creative, because you, at the end of the day, can create a creative experience that will help you flow into the rest of the day. So maybe there's something that you can do in the beginning of that day to help you get to that space where you're in that zone of, now I'm ready to sit down and type or write or anything like that. So hopefully that was some helpful stuff.
Both of you shared some very helpful tips, and thank you, Monisha, for answering Simone's question. And I agree. I I think you have to have your end goal in mind. You have to have your strategy. You can't, unless again you are a really well-known influencer, thought leader. And any of us can become that, where we get paid. I think Hope, you said you got paid like a 4 figures, which is fantastic, right? When speaking is not your main occupation or job, right? But otherwise, I think you have to say, what one is adding value. Always keep your audience in mind, whether it's writing a book or thinking when you're speaking, what can they get from it? Because it's not about what you want to hear, but what they want to hear. Very often when we speak or we write, we think about what we want to hear. And I think Monisha had mentioned earlier too in her book, think about people who don't know anything about what you're writing about, right? Because you cannot use industry jargon and then they don't know what you're saying. So I think keep your audience in mind. And then whether speaking, writing a book, being a guest on a podcast, running your own podcast, have a final goal, have a call to action. Maybe you have a coaching program, maybe you work for a company, but you want to get a job in the C-suite or leadership role, right? So it has to have an end goal and strategy in mind, and it's always about adding value. So if we're almost at the end of our conversation, does anyone have any questions? You can let us, again, we can only see questions on I think from LinkedIn. I don't think YouTube and Facebook are showing up here in our comments, but if you have questions, go ahead and ask them in the comment section. And if you're watching it later, do it, and I'll ask Hope and Monisha, and I will I will also check the comment box to see if there is anything. But Hope and Monisha, any last last takeaway tips? And also, how can people find you? How can people connect you? Do you have something coming up that you want to invite people to? And I know you also both have amazing books. I've read both your books. So if you want to share that as well, go ahead. The stage is yours again.
I will go so Monisha can have the last word and people can hear that. I'm trying to get out of this weird light. I don't have anything specifically coming up, but I really love to connect with people on LinkedIn. And one of my favorite things is that people will ask me specific questions and they'll say, here's a situation. I need to set boundaries with my manager because they keep asking me to work late hours and on the weekends, I just don't know how to do it. And then I will create a video back that I send to the person without the person's name. And then often I'll post it to my LinkedIn as well so that other people in that situation can benefit. So I am really very open to people connecting with me that way. I love to offer this type of help universally. So that's one thing someone can do. And then my book and more information about me is at my website, which is my name, hopetimberlake.com. And the book is hopetimberlake.com/book. So I would love to continue to support you however you need support.
Thank you, Hope. And do share the links in the if you can't do it now, you could do it once we're done. If you go to LinkedIn, the event page, at the bottom you can add all these links to the comments, because some people read it, but for me too, I like to see it and then click on it. So go ahead and do that, and thank you for sharing. And Monisha, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, so for some reason, like I said, I can't put anything in the comments, but I will add it to the LinkedIn. So you can reach me at my website at drbhanote.com. It is my last name. And on that website, you will find a host of resources, including my book, The Anatomy of Wellbeing, which is also available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble, all retail sellers. And then what do I have coming up? Well, I do have 2 events in person coming up. I have the Sedona Yoga Festival, which I already mentioned, which is in April. And then in May, I have a in-person retreat in Playa del Carmen in Mexico. It's a Reset Your Mind and Gut retreat, which is open to everyone who wants to use the power of the mind and plant-based nutrition to really reset their health, and they just need a helping hand to guide them. I am that hand. So would love to see you at either of those events. And on social media, on all platforms, I'm at Dr. Bhanote.
Awesome. Thank you both so much for sharing that. It was funny. I was just reading Simone's comment about the weird light on your face, Hope. I don't know if you saw her comment. It is funny. So I just wanted to share a few tips about for everyone who's looking to showcase their expertise in thought leadership. You know, both Monisha and Hope spoke about, speaking at organizations. Again, I always tell people, if you are waiting to be invited to have a seat at someone else's table and it's not happening, start by doing it yourself. And again, I'm a big LinkedIn nerd, I'm a LinkedIn trainer. LinkedIn is really pushing for is really empowering people to show up online. You can do a LinkedIn audio event, you can do LinkedIn lives like these. You can record yourself on your phone, like 15 minutes or less. You can even do a short little video, about your area of expertise. Share one tip, because if you're going to speak, you have to be comfortable being seen, right? So, and again, you see, I'm not an eloquent speaker. I stumble a lot, but I do it, and people tell me, it's really about the content, and I'm working on it. It's not like I'm like, okay, fine, I'm stumbling. I do work on trying, and the more I do it, the more comfortable I get with it. I was so nervous the first time I went live. My legs were like shaking. Even now, sometimes I take my daughter's little whatever that poppet toy and I push it, because sometimes I feel like, oh my gosh, all these people are looking at me, right? Even after I've spoken, like now, maybe 100 different events and workshops and everything, right? So just do maybe my takeaway for you is maybe do a LinkedIn video, record it on your phone and upload it on LinkedIn. Just a 1 minute or 2 minute. It could just be an introduction, like, hi, I'm so and so, this is what I do. Or if you have a tip, share that. And what do I have coming up? So my Hope and Monisha are both members of my Her Success Society, where I'm really focusing on showcasing women and helping them discover their zone of genius and share it. I do lots of LinkedIn lives and audio events where I invite my women members to speak up, using your terms, Hope, and share their expertise, because I really think that there are a lot of memberships out there, but very few of them really showcase their members and empower their women. And because I feel we all have a zone of genius, we all have that expertise, and if we can empower and inspire even one woman or one ally, we've done our job, right? So we cannot be invisible, we can't hide in the shadows. And I also have next month, I'm doing a Women in the C-Suite event in San Francisco. I hope you can attend. Members of Her Success Society can attend for free. And and so that's it. I will share links again in the comments of this LinkedIn event, and I'll ask Hope and Monisha to share their links, as well as on our YouTube and Facebook group. So you guys will have to share it in 3 different places. I'll send you the link. But I want to thank everyone so much for joining us. I want to thank Hope and Monisha. And, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. I would love to bring you back at some point, but just focus on writing a book, because I think that's such a hot topic. And both of you have written, really powerful books with a lot of amazing content and, takeaways and tips that people can implement right off the bat. So thank you all so much for joining me, and have a wonderful rest of the day or evening.
Great. Thank you all.
Bye.